I used to think the biggest turns in life arrived with fanfare, but the day that saved me came disguised as a forgotten flash drive. I was Nathan, a marketing analyst whose calendar ran like clockwork. Finish the deck, make the pitch, be home by 6 to cook with Carla, and fall back into a reliable routine that looked like commitment from the outside. We had married after a year of careful courtship because caution felt noble. She had survived 3 years with a controlling partner who eroded her confidence and isolated her from friends, and I had set out to be the counterweight, patient, steady, the man who never pushed. I learned her rituals, respected her space, and believed that consistency could heal what trauma had scorched. For a while it seemed to work. She called our bond healthy, admired that I never tried to fix her, and said safety had finally replaced suspicion. We married quietly with our parents' blessing and filled 3 years with small domestic traditions that pass for permanence when nothing tests them. On a Tuesday that should have been ordinary, I realized minutes before a client pitch that my flash drive wasn't in my bag. I retraced steps in my head and pictured it glowing in the USB port of my home computer where I had been polishing charts late the night before. There was time to retrieve it, and there was no reason to announce a 10-minute detour. The plan was simple: drive home, grab the drive, return before anyone poured coffee. Turning onto our street, I noticed a black SUV I didn't recognize blocking our curb. It registered as trivial background until I opened the door to the living room and walked into a scene that stripped the air from the house we had built. My wife was entangled with a stranger on the sofa we had chosen together, clothes scattered like confetti for a celebration I had not been invited to. The room felt both loud and muffled, as if my life had been pushed underwater. Instinct carried me to the home office. The flash drive slid into my pocket. The rest of me stayed behind, pinned to an image I would not be able to blink away. The presentation that afternoon happened because muscle memory carried it. My mouth formed sentences, slides advanced, hands pointed at projections, and colleagues nodded at numbers that no longer mattered. My boss read the static in my face and steered me to a quiet bar after work where grief could bleed off without an audience. He listened more than he spoke, and in the pauses, laid down a truth I needed. Whatever came next would be chosen, not drifted into. I went home late to a living room staged for contrition. Explanations rehearsed, causes softened into momentary weakness, timelines minimized until they could fit into a single apology. I said nothing because there was nothing language could repair. The next morning became the start of logistics. A call to a lawyer, a guest room turned into a silent border, early departures and late returns, documents assembled one by one until marriage became paperwork, and then a date stamp. Without children, assets divide quickly. Divorces like ours move on rails. What does not move is the loop in your head, the strange car, the mess of fabric on the floor, the sense that something sacred was used like a prop. Days blurred until an odd relief arrived. Not forgiveness, not even anger, just precision. She had shown me who she was when she thought no one would be watching, and that was more valuable than any speech about intentions. Love, I learned, can survive conflict. It cannot survive contempt for boundaries, and it cannot be rebuilt on a couch that still holds the imprint of betrayal. Time did what time does when you refuse to stall it. I rebuilt a routine that belonged only to me, filled evenings with actual rest instead of anxious caretaking, and discovered how much space returns when you are not managing another adult's secret life. My boss shifted from manager to mentor and eventually to friend, proof that not all interventions are grand. Some are simply a person noticing you are drowning and walking you back to shore. I carried forward the simplest lesson. When someone reveals their character, believe it. Words are a costume, actions are the face beneath. The forgotten flash drive felt, for a while, like the worst mistake of my career. It became the mechanism that ended a false story before it hardened into decades. I still believe in loyalty and commitment, but now they are requirements rather than slogans. I live lighter, not because the past didn't matter, but because I finally let it define a boundary instead of a prison. The marriage was short, the education was permanent.